Um, so hello, I'm Lasse Fister. It's my pleasure to present at this excellent type technology conference, which is probably the only one of its kind. I'm going to show you Font Bakery, the current status, which I've been contributing to for some years now. So the question is, what is Font Bakery and what can it do for you? Font Bakery is a set of checking tools for fonts. So nobody likes a tool that tells you when you're wrong, but you'll learn to love it. So first going to show you a short demo so that you get an idea of what it does and how it does it. This is part of our dashboard. We call it the drag and drop interface. We made it so that there's a quick entry into using Font Bakery. This is checking our fonts. So now it's already starting to check fonts, and it's putting out results. And you can see we only show errors, fails, and warnings because the others are actually not really interesting when you're doing quality assurance because pass is a no-brainer, basically. But you can see that there are a lot of checks, and it's ordered by files. So there are general family checks and file checks, stuff like that. And what you also can see, I think, in a second, is that there are other tools included in Font Bakery that we call, for example, this is Syntax Font Validator, which is just outputting hundreds of its own check results. And the worst check result in this case, something failed, so it's just the check result that is in Font Bakery in the end. This runs in the Google Cloud infrastructure, and it can kind of run in parallel so that it's faster and report these results live. Next slide. What's under the hype? The one part of Font Bakery is the framework to test fonts. Oh, that's really bad, isn't it? You can't see everything. What's the matter? Is it better? That's better, right? Okay, cool. So it's not only testing fonts, it's also testing font projects. Basically, it's very, you can write your own specifications and test whatever you want. So it does, well, the standard thing, what we do is using font tools, so TTF and OTF is no problem. We started a UFO sources specification, which uses DEFCON, I think, to load the UFOs. You can also check your glyph sources with what glyphslib is it called, I think, the Python library. And you can also check related files. So we have some metadata stuff in our font directories to get the fonts properly in the Google system. And yeah, so you can basically just check everything that is there. Batteries included, because we ship it with all the tests that we use for the onboarding process, Google Fonts, and you can, if you want, you can just use them. There are OpenType specific checks, OpenType specification specific checks, like Font Validator, for example, does exactly that. Then requirements of your distributor and custom requirements, like well, for us, it's maybe not custom, but we need to check basically that web fonts or are working as web fonts. Some of these things are not in the specifications, but you need to get them right, and we check stuff like that. Yeah, wrapping, we have that. When I joined the project, it was only a command line interface. It began as Python 2, but just yesterday we made it Python 3 compatible, so ready for the future. It's Libre licensed. It's on GitHub. You can get it. You can use it. You don't have to believe in open source software. It's just there. Then we have also the web dashboard. thing is, I love working with the command line, and I love programming for the command line because it's fast and it's direct and you don't have to think about it, but it's not good for everyone. And the dashboard is basically for those two other groups that are involved in the process, which are designers who don't like command lines and management staff who don't like looking at command lines as well. And we have a lot of overview going on there. So the dashboard has this drag and drop interface, and the dashboard has another interface that shows the production process, basically of the whole collection that we have. I'm going to show that in a minute. But first, the question is, why does Font Bakery exist? So Dave Crossland started Font Bakery as a project in Google for Google Fonts in 2013. Font Bakery is not a Google product. It's just a project we do for Google Fonts because it's not Google search or something like that. And it's just less bureaucracy for us to work not on an official Google project. And the main idea is to accelerate the onboarding process for Google Fonts, both when we add new fonts to the collection or when we update fonts, which is kind of important to get updates right. It can take pretty long for us to get fonts from when the designer is happy to when they are available via the API. So some people get frustrated with that, with us, but we have to do it carefully and that up, because otherwise we break the internet, and that can be slow, right? Being carefully can be slow. Breaking the internet is usually pretty fast, actually. There are thousands of families in Google Fonts, and many were published earlier. Earlier than the usual Foundry would publish these typefaces, so they were low quality and just to get them out, which is kind of the Silicon Valley idea of release early and then launch and iterate, and which was very controversial, and many people don't like what we are doing because our quality is bad, but we are working on improving it, the quality. Also, it's becoming more popular in the type community for other companies who do web fonts as well to update them from time to time. Because if you do web fonts, you can, in print, it's like, okay, this thing is printed and then it won't change anymore. But when you have web fonts, you can update them and then it can get better, right? And still, even foundries who release stuff after years have to update them from time to time if they add, for example, new languages to support. Everybody who makes update has to publish from time to time, so you have to check your stuff. This was the last year. Montserrat is an example that was updated. Montserrat is very popular on Google Fonts. So updating it means changing like over 5 million websites at once. And that's why we have to be sure that the versions that we push out are not buggy. So Google Fonts commissioned an update to be higher quality and to add the Cyrillic script. It was a big effort, collaboration across continents. Initially, Montserrat started as a one style regular typeface, but that one style was a bit heavy for body copy. And then we made a detailed review, and that was kind of flagged. So Dave Crossland agreed to change the default style to make it a bit lighter, to make it better for well, what regular should be copy use, right? That was a small change, or it was a big change. It's very subjective to tell what it was. What is important is that it was not an oversight on our side. It was intended. Montserrat is a big family with a lot of weights and gloves, and it took really a long time to review for Mark Foley to review the designer's work, and for Dave Crossland to approve the update. But not everyone agreed with Dave's decision. But Dave told me he really cares about quality. So he had commissioned Font Bakery to make it great again. Me and the Font Bakery contributors are automating quality checking as much as possible. And we think all foundries should be interested in this because you are not exactly in the business of selling quality fonts. That's just the thing people expect from you. They want to have your designs. And no one benefits from buggy fonts. And in fact, bad shipped buggy fonts is basically bad for everyone. So many foundries have QA tools and processes in-house, but they are often ad hoc or incomplete and getting old. And also OpenType is, since variable fonts and stuff like that, getting more and more complex. So new checks are needed, and we don't want to, well, we need to check our stuff against this stuff. We polished our tool. We believe that shared knowledge is powerful, and also we kind of document the esoteric parts of font engineering, the stuff that is not in the spec, the stuff that you find in 5 years old type drawers, comments, or whatever. It's really easy to write checks for Font Bakery. It's well, it's our proposition to improve the quality for everyone. Command line interface is powerful. It shows a bit like Font Bakery is built. There are some commands. I'm not going to make a live demo. I just recorded a video of it again. So this is the command. Just don't run it now. No. I want to talk about it. Oh well, it's running anyways. So this is how it's looking when you execute it from the command line. It's only reporting again errors, fails, and warnings. Oh, it's paused. Right. There's still some noise of the sections, but that's not so important. And that's a ready done check. So there you can scroll around and see your failing tests. You can also display the other tests that are there, but passes are usually not interesting, as I told before. So Font Bakery has history that started before me, actually as a web dashboard. Then it was basically upgraded into a test suite, so we had that before. And then it was simplified again by Felipe Sanchez in 2015 into just one check, just one script, Font Bakery check TTF, and that's basically the one script that is what we have now, what we built Font Bakery into its current state from. The current contributors are me, Felipe Sanchez, and Mark Foley, who are commissioned by Google Fonts, and recently joined from Dalton Mark, Nikolaus Wachsweiler. We are really happy about this because it's kind of the first external contributor who's really working seriously with that, so we like that. Thank you, Dalton Mark, and thank you, Nikolaus. Reason to upgrade is it was really hard to work with. It was only command line. It was, well, you ran it, and it had a lot of exceptions, so you couldn't test your font kind of before debugging it, and then you had to do all the time the debugging again for every new family and stuff like that. Unit testing was impossible. It was basically spaghetti code. I talked with Mark about it yesterday, I think. Do you remember last year how Fun Bakery was? And, and he was like, unusable, broken. So that was the state 1 year ago. So in last year, we started to work on the thing and make it good. Felipe had made a very good foundation for that, because the spaghetti code we had, he separated the tests, kind of the useful, the valuable part, from calling the test. So only calling the test was spaghetti code. The tests were in their own file, which made it possible to get rid of the spaghetti code and add a central test runner that would call the test for us, which is very good because you have only one position in the code where it can fail. So we can catch the exceptions, and unit test and all this stuff became possible, that you can see here down on the slide. Also, having nice, centralized, good organized structure gives you good tooling opportunities. Different reporters means we don't only output to terminal, we can also output to JSON files. The dashboard has a reporter, which is using kind of the same interface that writes directly to the database. Markdown will be coming soon, because it will be nice to have Markdown output to report issues in GitHub. Parallel execution is possible. We don't have it on the command line. The dashboard has it heavily. Yeah, if you want to have one fun fact about your collection, you can write a small test and run it for all your funds in the collection and get these kinds of information. And we made creating specs super easy, because we want you all to use it in your quality assurance processes. Yes, dashboard, of course. So writing, that's the fun part. I'm going to talk about code. Writing specifications that's the boilerplate part. You need to like these 4 import lines. The first one is just to make it half. Well, that's the minimum you need to make it Python 2 and 3 compatible. Second one is the stuff you are actually writing. So these are what's the name? Oh. Decorators. And then the third line are the statuses a check can have, where ordered in the severity. Like pass is the least severe check, and error is really bad, and fail is bad. So the worst one of these in order will be the check status, but you can yield more than one status in a check, like the FTX font validator did, which kind of yielded hundreds of results. And then the last line is kind of what marks your Python module as a font bakery specification. There is also this, I wrote a more complete guide, which is this URL at the bottom. So this is in our repo. If you want to get started, probably rather go there than to this slide. That's how a check can look. This is not really an existing check, because I wanted to make it shorter than the one we have. But we think it's important that you have a no breaking space character in your font. It's, I think, not in the OpenType specification that you have to have it, but we want to have it. So the first time is that decorator with an ID. These IDs, we ask you kindly to make them globally unique, and that's why we you would add first your domain or your reverse domain name notification domain name, whatever, and the rest is up to you. Just it should never change again. Function name is not so important. The parameter TT font is very important, actually, because we use dependency injection, and the check runner will kind of use these parameter names to figure out what your check actually wants to have. And it's, in this case, it's smart enough. We give it many fonts, so it knows how to run this check for each of the fonts, not just for one. So it will be, if you give it 4 fonts, it will run 4 times, basically. TT font is a font tools TT font instance, basically, which is, that's not built into Font Bakery. It's actually built into the specification, so it's very quick. The check runner does not know about font tools at all. Your specification does, which is good because we want to have this separation of concerns, so we can use the check runner to check anything else. 3 is required. We won't accept any checks that don't have at least a 1-line description, because we want to have a human-readable output on the screen, and we use that for exactly that. 4 is what we actually do, basically. We use a helper for this, because it's not just 2 lines to get a glyph from a font with font tools, or I think at least it is, no? And 5 is what it returns. So if it fails, it returns a tuple of the fail status and a message, and when it passes, it returns a pass. And when you want to have more statuses returned by one check, you have to use yield, and your check will become a generator, and then you can, instead of return, yield hundreds of statuses if you want to. That's a video of the custom spec I just showed you. So let's look what happens. So yeah, that's the spec. And then we run it. Font Bakery has, actually, if you use Bash, we have some Bash completion built into it. So you can tap through it. You give it the file. You can directly use your file for it. And I think in this case, we give it fonts again. I'm not sure what. This is the fonts, Google Fonts, GitHub. We give it Railway, and we use the verbose mode because the test will all pass. If everything passes, you get a unicorn, because unicorns are very rare. And that's basically it. So that could be your first own custom spec. You can also easily mix our check library into it, whatever you need. But actually, it's a good thing to review the stuff, because it may or may not check what you need. So that's kind of another hope that we have, that we can get a better quality when we all use the same quality assurance checks. That's the thing about the namespaces, the naming IDs. I think I just mentioned this already. So there are some rules to make sure we don't have ID clashes, and we really want to have them never change, because we will build tooling around it. Let's say I want to compare the check run from last year with this year, so it's really nice when I know how one check changed over time. That's a bit more complicated, so we use TT font. That's kind of the last line. The dependency injection thingy works like we have to declare what names we can use as check arguments. And the first one, we declare, that's built into font spec, is fonts. That's just a list of font file names. Second one is, in this case, iter args, which tells Font Bakery that when I use font, I want to have kind of this check run once for each font in the expected value fonts. Conditions are kind of like fixtures, maybe. We can use them to calculate some new values from other values that we have. It uses also, it's also functions, and it uses the dependency injection. And so you can also give it font, and you in this case, it returns the TT font object, and derived iterables are making, it's just, if you want to have a list of all fonts, of all TT font objects, you have to do this to get it, so you can use TT fonts. That's in a nutshell what you need to know. There's more in this document that I linked. Okay, this is the dashboard, which is kind of a bigger effort to what we did there, because we want to have this this live overview over all of our fonts. I'm going to pause this. From left to right, we see different sources. Left is the farthest, furthest away from our production. The right side is the production, and in the center is the Google Fonts GitHub repository, which is everything that is in master there will end up in production. And on the left side, this is the pull requests, so everything which is requested to go into master. And basically, what we are hoping is that that we can see one day the quality improve from left to right. So having so we have on the right side less failures than in master. No, differently. This should have the least failures and on the right side most. Then we can hopefully track how the work that we are doing is improving, or if it's not improving, we need to do something about it, right? Is this? I think it is. Sure. All right. Okay, so we can sort stuff, and for example, this is interesting. Which are the worst fonts in production? Like this is Nanum, Myungi. So we can expand it and get all the kind of collected results and some more information. Like on the right side is the count of fonts. The interesting thing is this is really the complete collection of Google Fonts. I think it's around 1,000 lines in this table. So we have in master, I think we have a bit more than 1,000 families. And that's kind of it has 2,500 circa files in master and in production, and we are testing this. I scaled this last year to, I think we are using 2,000 workers, and we are testing kind of 5,500 fonts, like this whole table, in 10 minutes, I think. So we can pretty fast kind of update font bakery and then see, like, let's say we add one or more checks, and then we can run it against everything we have, and in 10 minutes we see kind of what changed. So we continue. Yes, it's running in the cloud. It's using Kubernetes. So it's running in the Google Cloud, of course, but it's using Kubernetes, and Kubernetes is a container orchestration system. So it runs Docker containers, which is kind of virtual machines, and it's available also at AWS or from Amazon or Microsoft Azure or stuff like that. So you could run it in other clouds as well. It's written with Python. There's a lot of Node.js in it. And so basically the font bakery stuff, workers are Python, and other workers are often Node.js. And the front end is HTML5 and JavaScript. Yeah, you know the drag and drop UI. I told you we are running 2,000 workers in parallel, and like something like that. And this is made for tooling the onboarding process, so that we can eventually, hopefully, make it much, much faster to do proper quality assurance. We want to include more tools into it. Mark Foley is doing a lot of interesting tools that are not like Font Bakery is more on the checking the invisible stuff side. Mark Foley is more on checking the visible stuff side. So the GF regression tool, for example, is there to spot kind of easily but visually regressions. The font diffinator is an interesting project that kind of diffs to fonts and tells you what changed, so it's easy to spot interesting parts with that. I have written a tool last year, Specimen Tools, which is a JavaScript library to make HTML specimens for fonts. We will integrate that. We want to create the idea is a document-driven workflow for designers, because we believe that a designer is making better results when the document he uses for proofing are better, and so the thing is we need documents where designers can proof their stuff, and we want to build a workflow around that. Test My Font is the project website. Test My Font is not using specimen tools yet, but you'll get the idea. I think it has some descriptions of that. What Font Bakery needs now, and that's why I'm here, is we need more users to use it. That's the first point. You use it, you review checks because you want to know what you're checking. You don't have to review everything at once. You can also just try all checks that are there and then decide for failing ones if you want to have them or not, if they are checking stuff you want to have or not. We organized actually our checks, or we started to organize them by OpenType tables. So you will find a specification for CMAP and a specification for HEA, stuff like that. It's easier that way to put it, and we'd really like to have this kind of grow into a very good, comprehensive, generally useful collection of tests for everyone, and you just don't use the tests you don't want to have. So when you use it, review stuff, file bugs, file issues. We love that. We will discuss it with you online, and we are always polite. And we need contributors. We love contributors. We love pull requests. That's it. Thank you. Questions? So.